Hello everyone. Today we will discuss about the compartment syndrome. Compartment syndrome it is actually a devastating condition because it can lead to amputation as well as the paralysis in the muscle. Compartment syndrome there occur bulla formation, there is increase in the pressure, and there was so much pain in the patient. What happens is it is a rise in the pressure in the osseofacial compartment and basically compromising the perfusion and that will lead to the necrosis of the muscle as well as the nerves. Now, in our body, there are a lot of skeletal muscle groups, which, in which the skeletal muscles are actually enclosed by the fascia. Now, these fascia actually they send septa in between the skeletal muscle, and these septa gets attached to the bone. So, by doing so, these septas and the fascia they're actually making some compartments of the skeletal muscle. These act as a closed compartment. There are various causes for the compartment syndrome. The most common of them it is the trauma, and among the trauma it is the fracture. In the case of 69% cases, it is the most common cause responsible for the compartment syndrome. Other than that, it is the crush injury and the gunshot wound injury. If somebody supplies the tight bandage, right external application, slab, and somebody is suffering from burns, and somebody had a cutout of venous outflow, or if it was not properly inserted, and in case of bleeding disorders, the person will suffer from the compartment syndrome. These all factors actually they increase the pressure in that osseofacial compartment. We know that vascular supply is compromised, and by doing so, the necrosis of the muscle and nerve. Now, these two together they are responsible for the necrosis of the muscle and the nerve because vascular supply is compromised means the muscles are not getting the nutrients as well, and the toxic elements are not getting washed off. Now, regarding the necrosis of the skin in case of compartment syndrome, it is a swelling which is solely responsible for the necrosis of the skin, not only the pressure and the this compromise in the vascular supply. It is the swelling which causes the necrosis of the skin. Now, if the at the proper time the proper measures are not taken, these necrotic tissues they will ultimately be replaced by the fibrous tissue, and after that, that particular affected limb it will go into the contracture. For example, the Walkman and ischemic contraction. That is the best example of that. Now, these patients of compartment syndrome, they present to us with a hell lot of pain, and even this much pain that it cannot be relieved by the narcotics even. And some of these patients, they don't feel any kind of pain because the nervous structure has already been damaged and they are in the advanced stage. There will be a one group of patients in which the ruling out the cause of the pain is very difficult, like in case of a polytrauma, and in case of those who are under sedation, and in case of children, because children cannot pinpoint the site of the pain and we cannot demonstrate properly and effectively. Next, we will examine this patient. We will look for the swelling, we will look for the tenderness, rotation. There will be generalized tenderness over the that affected compartment area. There will be bulle formation will be there, and the most sensitive examination finding in this patient will be the stress sign. That is the passive stress sign. That is the most sensitive finding. Now, as the compartment pressure rises, the nerve also gets compressed. So this they will be suffering from the paresthesia and the hypoesthesia. And as this stage advances more, they will be having paralysis distal to that part, and then with time passes, the vascular occlusion will be occur completely, and the peripheral pulses will also be absent, and that may lead to the amputation. Now, as the aesthetic part is being affected first, then the motor part, so essentially are the most commonly involved as compared to the motor one. If we compare the two, means sensory system is being affected early and being affected more in case of compartment syndrome. Now, previously, what people used to do, they are having index of suspicion regarding the compartment syndrome. They used to do fasciotomy. They didn't waste the time in doing the in measuring the compartment pressure. Actually, currently, the scenario is we have two categories of patient. We have one category in which there is an unequivocal compartment syndrome findings are present. In this condition, prompt fasciotomy is required. And this is another group of patients in which the compartment pressure measuring is the must. That include those who are having polytrauma, those who are having under sedation and or unconscious, and in case of children. If the pressure comes out to be more than 30 mm of Hg, the patient is having compartment syndrome. But the most sensitive measure, it is not the absolute pressure, it is the difference of the compartment pressure of that diastolic blood pressure. Means diastolic blood pressure we have to measure first, then minus the compartment pressure. If the value comes out to be less than 30 mm of Hg, it is the most sensitive measure. Now, before doing fasciotomy, we should know the respective compartment in that particular part or particular limb. For example, tibia, forearm, foot, hand. Now, among all these, the most commonly involved in the compartment syndrome it is the leg, leg part. Then comes the forearm, then comes the foot, then comes the hand. Now, leg contains the four compartment, forearm contains the three compartment, and the foot it has nine compartment, and the hand it has 10 compartment. Now, first of all, we will look the leg. Now, the leg. Leg actually has four compartment. The anterior one, the lateral one, the posterior one, which includes the superficial and the deep. The anterior compartment, it includes the tibialis anterior, extensor hallucis longus, brevis, peroneus tertius. The lateral compartment includes the peroneus longus, brevis. Posterior compartment includes the soleus, gastrocnemius, popliteus, and the deep one includes the tibialis posterior, flexor hallucis longus, flexus historum longus. Now we have to decompress this whole compartment while doing fasciotomy. So we have two approaches. One is the dual incision approach, one is the single incision approach. Single incision, it is a cumbersome, and by doing this, we can miss to decompress the compartment. Now, regarding the dual approach, we have two incision, anterolateral and the anterior medial incision. So, regarding this lateral incision, what we have to do? First, we have to mark the lateral malleoli and we have to mark the head of the fibula. We will connect these two. We will connect these two, and then we will mark the area one finger breadth in front of the fibula. This is the site for our lateral incision. For medial incision, we have to mark the medial malleoli. Then we have to mark the border of the middle border of the tibia, and we have to go one thumb behind the middle border of the tibia. That is the our actual site of the incision. After doing the skin and the subcutaneous tissue, the fascia are classically open in the H-shaped manner. And this is the picture showing how the compartment have been decompressed. Now, while making a little incision, we have to take care of the superficial peroneal nerve. And in case of middle incision, we have to take care of the saphenous vein and the saphenous nerve. We do not have to compromise those. Now, the single incision approach, it is a cumbersome, we know. The common peroneal nerve, it is at a very much risk because the incision start just below the fibular head. One more thing, the intermuscular septum, they should not be damaged while doing fasciotomy because these contains the vessels as well as the nerves, basically the vital structure. Now, next we will look at the forearm, how to decompress it. So for that, we need to know how many compartments are there. This is the diagram. There are actually three compartments. One is the dorsal compartment, one is the mobile valve, which contains the brachioradialis, extensor carpioides longus, extensor carpioides brevis. Next is the volar compartment, which contains all of our flexors, pronator teres, palmaris longus. These are our forearm, three compartments. Now, for the forearm, we have two approaches. One is the volar incision approach and one is the dorsal incision approach. In case of dorsal incision approach, which is specifically meant for the mobile VAD, in which we mark the incision site, it is actually 2 centimeter from the lateral epicondyle and it is in the midline along the wrist over the dorsum aspect. And we make an interval between the extensor digitorum communis and the extensor conjugalis brevis. Regarding the volar compartment, we have the volar approach in which we decompress the volar as well as the dorsal compartment. We create an interval between the flexor carpi ulnaris and the flexor digitorum superficialis, and by doing so, we separate these two compartments and we reach the deep fascia of the forearm. We have to decompress the deep compartment as well. Now, for the hand, we have three approaches. One is the dorsal approach in which two incisions are made. One is over the second, one is over the fourth metacarpal. Now, next incision is made along the ulnar border of the fifth metacarpal. And the last incision in case of hand compartment, it is made along the radial side of the first metacarpal. So this is all about the hand incision. Now, if the forearm and the hand, the pressure not released properly, proper measure not taken, what will happen? It will go into the Boxman ischemic contracture, and that basically involves the forearm, wrist, and the hand. Now, there is a classification for the Boxman ischemic contracture, which is the such classification, which has been categorized into the mild, moderate, and the severe entity. Mild includes the flexor of the finger only. The moderate includes the flexor of the finger and the wrist. And the severe cases, it includes, along with the flexor, the extension of the wrist and the extension of the finger. For category 1, sprinting is applied, and for category 2 and 3, tendon transfer is being done. Next, we will look at the compartments of the foot. First of all, look at the four interossei compartment. Then we have in the foot, it is the adductor hallucis compartment, and there is one lateral compartment, and there is two central compartment, which include the superficial as well as the deep part, and the one is the medial compartment of the foot. For measuring the compartment pressure, we have the specific landmarks in each compartment. Like for the medial and the central compartment, we have to pierce the abductor hallucis at the level of base of first metatarsal to measure that pressure. To measure the interossei pressure, we have the second, third, and fourth interossei space where we directly insert the needle and we measure the pressure. For the lateral compartment, we insert the needle at the level of shaft of fifth metatarsal and we measure the pressure. Here we have for the compartment release, dual incision, single incision approach. So dual incision is preferred over the single incision. Single incision technically very challenging. Now in the dual incision approach, we will make the incision over the dorsal aspect first. First we will mark over the second metatarsal and the fourth metatarsal. Then for second metatarsal we go slight medially, and for the fourth metatarsal incision will be placed like laterally, as we can see in this picture. So the second metatarsal incision actually decompresses the first and the second interossei and the medial and the deep central compartment. And the incision along the fourth metatarsal that will decompress the third and the fourth interossei space and the lateral compartment as well as the superficial central compartment of the foot. Now, what are the complications in case of foot compartment syndrome? It is the clawing of the toes, and it is the chronic pain and the hypersensitivity. It's a very difficult condition to manage, actually, the chronic pain and the hypersensitivity. But for the clawing of toes, we can do the release of the flexor digitorum brevis and the flexor digitorum longus. Uh, that's it. Thank you.